Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the recent interview involving Michael Gove, who's a senior member of Boris Johnson's government and one of the architects of Brexit. He was making false claims about the rights of EU citizens in the UK in an attempt to stoke up passions that fueled the Leave result during the 2016 Brexit referendum. But first, if you'd like to see more of my videos, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon as well. So in 2016, one thing that Leave.eu in particular, which was not Michael Gove's campaign group, what they did very well was stoke up views about immigrants in the UK. Much of the time it wasn't even EU immigration they were talking about. That didn't matter. The people they were targeting never actually join up the dots. They're more like the people who get told that a random jumble of stars really does look like a crab and, oh, they believe it. It's a trick that Conservatives have been using as far back as I can remember, actually. Even in the days when they were fully on board with being a strong member of the European community, they would still pass the blame for their own cruel or incompetent actions onto others. And Europe was a handy place to throw that blame. It was a handy little trick all the way up to 2016 when it backfired spectacularly and resulted in all the lies coalescing in people's minds that had been building up over decades of lies in the media and lies from these Tory MPs, and persuaded them to vote for the most destructive act ever to be suffered by our island nation, arguably. And all entirely self-destructive because Conservative MPs can't afford to tell the truth about how deliberately damaging to the most UK citizens their policies really are. So flying the flag for this particular behaviour at the weekend was Michael Gove. He described how EU citizens had, in his words, preferential access to NHS care and without paying into the system. He described how unfair this was. Now, there are a few things I need to go over here. One is why this is such a powerful campaigning tactic, and also to tackle the two massive and pretty obvious lies within this short, simple statement. Now, why this is so important is because the National Health Service is probably the British institution that most Britons are proud of and would like to defend. We all need it from time to time, and when we do, it could save our lives or the lives of our nearest and dearest, and indeed many times it has. So it has a special place in the hearts of people whether on the left or the right wing. Although it's a Labour construct that the Conservatives at the time vigorously opposed, even the Tories have to publicly say what a great thing it is. Boris Johnson, during the TV debate earlier this week, was gushing in his praise for the NHS and saying how important it was that the NHS is strong and how he would never sell it off and how he's absolutely going to do the best for it. Of course, not only have successive Conservative governments weakened the NHS whenever they have been in power, but they have been selling it off. It's already been sold off. I talked a couple of weeks ago about how it has been calculated that 26% of all NHS funding goes to private companies. That's not selling it off. I don't know what is. Although we are going to find out in the next few years if the Conservatives get a majority. But the point is that the NHS can make or break an election. If Labour could get the people to see the damage that the Conservatives are doing to the NHS, then they would easily win the election. It's that simple. But likewise, the Conservatives win when they persuade people that they mean to improve the health service. They've managed this con for years, and this is why they keep being elected back in. It was no mistake that Gove and Johnson put a fake claim about the NHS on their Brexit bus during the referendum campaign in 2016. They persuaded a lot of people that the NHS would benefit from Brexit. It would get more funding. And so many people voted for it on that basis, and many people have since regretted it. And the British population in general consistently demonstrate in polls that they would be happy to pay higher taxes if it means the NHS remains properly funded. And a very significant majority of people think that too. So the NHS is a very big deal and explains why the Conservatives are constantly conning the public into the belief that they care about it as well. So what about the lies in Gove's statement? So the first was in saying that EU citizens get preferential treatment. Now, that is basically saying that non-UK EU citizens in the UK get to be seen by doctors and nurses more quickly in A&E and in general practice surgeries, and also to suggest that they'd be put ahead of UK citizens on waiting lists for treatments. Now, when you break it down like that, you ask anyone that's got any experience of the NHS, is that right? And they'll probably think, no, that doesn't make sense. Because, of course, it is nonsense. If you have any experience of the NHS, and that's almost everyone living in the UK, whether a UK citizen or a citizen of somewhere else, you know that doesn't happen. Even the people who are intended to be taken in by the Conservative lies in this case know that that's not true if they thought about it. Except maybe that guy who went into hospital with a cut on his finger when an Italian lady was rushed in with a broken leg and she was seen before them. That guy probably thinks foreigners get preferential treatment. But the rest of us, even those who will ultimately buy Gove's deceit, would know better than that if they spent a second or two to think about it. And if you spent a whole minute thinking about it, you would think this. Well, if the government decide what NHS targets are and what systems they are, and they control the NHS, and foreigners are getting seen ahead of UK citizens, then why have the Conservatives allowed this to happen when they've been in power for nearly 10 years? That doesn't make sense, does it? No, it's quite simple, the answer to that question. It's because it doesn't happen. So Tory supporters don't actually fundamentally believe it when they consider it. But that's okay, they're not supposed to believe it. They're not even supposed to think about it, are they? The statement was just made to say that foreigners have it easier than Britons in general. It's just the word, preferential treatment. Oh, they're getting preferential treatment over us. That's not fair. We come from here. Then the second lie about not paying into the system. That's what he said. They don't pay into the system. Now, in this case, it may be that some people would believe that, as hard as it may seem. But it still wouldn't stand up to serious thinking. After all, how do UK citizens pay into the NHS? How do we do that? That's right, with our taxes. Well, everyone working in the UK pays taxes to the UK government, and the amount of tax you pay isn't dependent on your citizenship. If you work in the UK, you pay UK taxes, you pay income tax, you pay national insurance, and it's based purely on earnings, unless you're either rich or an American. If you're rich, you actually get a bit of a rebate from our thoughtful government on almost all of your taxes if you're wealthy enough. If you're American, then as well as paying those UK taxes the same as the rest of us, they also have to pay US taxes, despite not living or working there. So the country that seems almost allergic to taxation, if ever you hear their politicians, makes their citizens pay taxes in situations that other countries don't. But anyway, back to the point. And of course, EU citizens working in the UK pay into the system, and they pay the same amount as a UK citizen on the same earnings. So what's that about, and why shouldn't they be able to access the NHS like the rest of us? But Michael Gove, as the rest of the government, know that stoking up xenophobia worked so well in the Brexit referendum, not just in getting people to vote for their cause, but to get out and vote in the first place. Impassioned people are much more likely to put the effort into walking down a street and marking a piece of paper with a pencil, which takes so much effort that it's not worth it for like 60% of the population half the time. Now, his interview was essentially all about stoking those passions, because again, he knows it works. And in addition, the blatant lies are just simply not being called out enough. It's no good opposing political forces doing it, like opposition parties. Of course, they must do it. They must keep doing that. But opponents will just simply assume that well, they're politicians. Of course, they're going to take the counter view. They're not being honest. They can't trust politicians. They'll probably lie in. So it's another failure of the media, really, to hold politicians to account and to ensure that the public are not misled. The media simply should not be allowing a politician to come on and tell blatant lies. If when you call them out they still persist in the lie, then you have to say, well, we're not going to interview you then. But that's not happening. So we'll continue to see this sort of behaviour until something just snaps in our society and enough people realise that it's just gone too far. But just how much damage has to be done before people wake up and see that? I daren't imagine. So I would expect this sort of behaviour to continue for some time. I would definitely expect to see it ramped up as the election campaign nears its end next month. And with nobody doing anything about it, and indeed the opposition parties not bothering to pass legislation before dissolving and triggering the general election to make it more difficult, well, it's fair game now. So I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please click the Patreon link for details as well. And until next time, I'll see you later.